Good Sunday morning, YouTube. How you guys doing today? Good morning, allegedly. How you doing? If you guys could hear me, could you please hit the one before I get started? I just don't want to be talking and nobody could hear me. So allegedly, if you could hear me, could you please hit the number one? Okay, thank you, allegedly. Good morning, Wanda Mathis. Good morning, Due Process, Sophia, Miles. Good morning. Oh, thank you guys. Okay, so I told you guys last week, I believe, Chavez, at the beginning of last week, that I would be speaking about what I felt about integration as opposed to separate but equal. And today, in honor of Martin Luther King Day, we know that his birthday was January 15th, but um, America, some of us anyway, celebrate his Martin Luther King Jr. on the 20th, which is tomorrow. So today I wanted to, hey Snazzy Girl. So today I wanted to speak a little bit about, as well as play a little bit from a debate that had taken place in 1965. Um, a debate between James Baldwin and William F. Buckley at Cambridge University. In case you guys don't know who James Baldwin is, I'm sure you guys do if you're in my chat. But James Baldwin is a black man. He was a author, a poet, he wrote theatrical plays, and but more importantly, he was a very visible advocate for civil rights. And so I'm going to be playing a little bit of his debate, like I said, between William F. Buckley. William F. Buckley was an Anglo racist, average, you know, white supremacist in 1965, and so they underwent a debate. A debate was on between him and Buckley in 1965, and I'm gonna play some of that for y'all because the reason why I'm going to play a little bit of that debate for you all is because the title of the video, the title of the question that I asked on the title of this video was, has the American dream, been achieved, um, at the expense of the ADOS, the American descendant of slavery? Because the title of the debate is the question of the debate that I'm going to play for y'all. Is the question that they were asking is, was the American dream achieved at the expense of the American Negro? I didn't want to put the word Negro in the title because it is really not used. Well, we know that it's not really not used today as it pertains to our people. And also, I don't like the term Negro, um, simply because it sets us apart from humanity. And I don't like the way that the term Negro was used, back in the 60s, back during the civil rights movement, even used by Dr. King, because it sets us apart from who we are. And so I don't like to use that term. And as far as I use the term ADOS, because that is how many of us see ourselves today. There's a great ADOS debate going on, right now. Thank you, Due Process. And so that's why I wanted to use that term, because we are all God's children. We are human beings. We are not three-fifths of a human being. We are not, anything other than what God intended for us to be. And so that's why the title is such as it is. So anyway, um, before I play this debate, and I want you to get, and I on purpose chose black screen this morning because the educational system, the public school system here in America, it has done a disservice to our children. You know, for a very long time. Hey, Maturish, how you doing? For a very long time, it's like that. None of us can focus, especially when we're even on the internet. You can't focus on anything, or you can't learn from anything unless you're seeing a picture of it. When do we come? When did we become a people that has to have some type of visual aid, like you're in kindergarten. Like you're in kindergarten when you're learning the word dog. They have the picture of the word. They have a picture of a dog, in front of the child, so that the word can be associated with the animal. But as adults, as critically thinking adults, we should not have to have a visual picture of a dog to know what a dog is. Do you see what I'm saying? And I think that it's doing a disservice sometimes, for us, to have allowed ourselves to be, our mentalities, to have been, you know, you know, just like lowered to the point to where we have to have visual aids. You know what I mean? And it doesn't make any sense to me to have to, use visual aids when it comes to adults, because my channel is not geared towards children. I should not have to put up a picture of a dog in order for you to know what a dog is, if you know what I mean by that. So yeah, it's a little bit offensive to me, and it's insulting, uh, to people's intelligence, in my opinion. They may not see it that way, but I do. You see what I'm saying? So that is why you see a black screen this morning. And that is important because I want you to use your ears and your critical thinking skills as opposed to visual aids. It is not all the time necessary to have a visual aid in front of you, in my opinion. Mal said my grandfather used to say, free school don't. I agree with your father, Miles, that the American public school system has done a disservice to our children, you know. And so, anyway, I don't even know how I got off on that subject. The question that I want to pose to you guys, and I'm also, if you want to, after we hear this debate between James Baldwin and William F. Buckley, if you want to, I want you guys to call in and let me know how you feel about the question, or give me your response to this question. Did integration help our people, or did it hurt our people? We can, we can side on quarterback now because it has been more than 50 years since the civil rights movement, since the civil rights marches. It's been 50 plus years now. So in retrospect, our elders were fighting for integration, as well as civil and human rights. But should we have, and I absolutely agree with us fighting for civil and human rights, you shouldn't have to fight for the right to be seen as a human being. You should never have had to fight for the rights, you shouldn't have to march and protest and bigot in a country in which your people helped raise, in which your blood is on the soil. But you have to fight for your human rights. You have to fight for your people to be stopped, to stop being hung by trees, stop being killed with impunity. We should never have had to have fight for basic human rights. It's ridiculous. Even today, some of the things that were going on then are much like the thing, or exactly the things that were going on then. Do you see what I'm saying? We are still being shot down in the street with impunity. We still are not seen as anything more than three-fifths of a human being by a lot of people, including ourselves, unfortunately. But my question is, did integration do a disservice, to our communities in particular, as opposed to separate but equal? Because we were practicing, we were, segregated before we embarked on this movement of integration. Do you see what I'm saying? But in retrospect, I believe that it would have been more beneficial for us to have been marching for civil rights, human rights, as well as separate but equal, as opposed to integration. Because, like I said, in my opinion, integration did a disservice to our people. Our communities went down. Our economic base suffered. We know we are on life support. You know, in this day and age, our community is on life support. We do have a black community, if you will, still, in my opinion, but it has become so spread apart, so integrated with other races of people in other communities, to the point to where we have pretty much neglected our own community. No other community of people do that. Besides, it is only us that do that. It is only us that take our hard-earned dollars out of our community and put those dollars into other communities. And that is one way, in my opinion, that integration has harmed our community. We took our economic base away from us, and we gave the economic base to other communities. Which, in my opinion, was one of the key reasons for the Anglo making it seem like they were against integration, but after a while, but okay, we'll give you integration. We'll let you come in our restaurants. We'll let you come spend money in our stores. It is not because you felt like we should have the right to do this. It is because they realized that, hey, if I let them come in my stores and in my restaurants, you know what I mean, and ride in the front of my buses, I will be getting their black dollars, and their black dollars are generating more income for my community. And so that is the only purpose that integration served, in my opinion, in retrospect. That is how I feel like we should have been fighting for separate but equal rights, but in our own community, you know, and we should have been fighting to educate our people to build a stronger economic base, because we did have a very good economic base. It may not seem that way. The country wanted you to think that we didn't have a strong economic base, because if you don't have a strong economic base in your community, your community cannot compete. And we were competing in our community because we were segregated. And because we were segregated, we were spending our black dollars in our communities. You see what I'm saying? We had our own busing systems. We had our own, restaurants, our own clothing companies, our own everything. And because our black dollars were being circulated in our own community, we were competing with other communities, with the Anglo community. And I believe that it was very insidious how they got us to, just pretty much abandon our own economic base, because they were afraid that we were beginning to compete economically. We were afraid, to advance on what they call the American dream. We were doing that in our communities because we did not have a choice. But when we began when they gave us the right, if you will, to leave our communities behind, to integrate in their communities, buy a house in their communities, as opposed to buying a house in our own communities, when we were able to, spend our monies in their restaurants, in their, clothing stores, in their whatever, that was an insidious way of destroying our community and our economic base. And so, but I don't think that um, Dr. King, as well as those that were marching for civil and human rights, well, now Dr. King later on discovered, that he was doing a disservice to his community, via integration. And he started talking about the Poor People's Campaign. He started moving towards economics. He started wanting us to rebuild our economic base, because even he started to see the decline. The thing that was going on in our community that was very, the insidious thing that, was taking place in our communities, because a lot of the black businesses had to, they were no more, because you're now taking your black dollars away, from your, black buses, for instance. We fought so hard to sit on the front of the bus, but You could sit on the front or the back or the middle of the bus, with when you had your black busing companies. Why are you fighting so hard to fight on the front of their buses when you can take your same dime and spend it on your own bus line and sit where you want to sit? But for a lot of us, even today, the white man ice, if you will, is always colder. We out. It seems so unnecessary to me that our people fought so hard, um, to be seen as good enough, and we were always good enough. We were always superior. We were competing at one time, with these people. But it's unfortunate that we fought so hard to destroy our own communities, and integration destroyed our community, in my opinion, simply because you took the economic base away. And in retrospect, I think that it was all a trick. That was a trick the whole time, you know, because it cost the white man nothing to integrate you. It cost him nothing to say that, okay, now, you can move into my community. You know what I mean? Now, I won't, you know, shoot you down in the street whenever I wanted to. Now I just do it sometime. I can say you're a criminal, and that will give me the authority, you know, to shoot you down, as opposed to then they didn't have to have a reason for shooting you down or lynching you, other than the color of your skin. So, like I said, in retrospect, I just believe that it, did more harm than good. What do you think? Do you think that it did more harm than good? You know, what do you guys think? If you think it did more harm than good, to hit the one for me real quick before we move on, because I really want you guys to listen to this debate. But I also just wanted to, just let you guys know what I felt, when it comes to integration as opposed to separate but equal. I felt like we should have been fighting to keep our own communities intact rather than fighting to be integrated into their communities, if you will. I think we should have been focusing harder on, continuing to compete, and if they weren't afraid of us competing, if they were in no fear of that at all, then why did you have the burning down and the bombing of upwardly mobile, cities and towns like Black Wall Street, or Rosewood, because these black communities were doing very well. We know this. History has recorded this for us. So if we're doing so good, why then come to destroy it if you want us to be segregated from you? We had our own schools, we had our own communities, we traded amongst one another. So if you're in such a fear of the black man to the point to where you want to segregate him, why then, when he starts to compete in his own community that you segregated him to, why then do you have such a problem with him doing exactly what you wanted him to do? Mal said, but I think integration was our ancestors' answer to not being killed just for looking, at a white woman in the face. Yes, and I understand that. And at the time, I understand the mentality, Myers, but that's why I said in retrospect, what I mean? Just like, how you armchair quarterback, you looking at the game and you saying, don't do this, don't do that, don't go this way, don't go that way, but at the time you're not in the fight your own self. You're not in the game yourself, but because you're looking at it, you can see where they're going to go wrong, making the play that they're playing. So, but yeah, I agree. At the time, it was necessary, but it's unfortunate that they couldn't see beyond, having to worry about being killed simply by glancing at a white woman, you know. And so, yeah, it's unfortunate. But Dr. King, like I said, he started to realize that, hey, we need to be, building our own economic base. And he set about that Poor People's Campaign for that reason. And also, if you would realize, when we were in the midst of our fight during the civil rights movement. I'm glad you showed up, NYW. I got something to ask you. When we were at the pinnacle of the civil rights movement, a war broke out. Vietnam broke out, and that kind of derailed the civil rights movement. Do you see what I'm saying? It derailed it because America was starting to warm up to the idea of integration, warm up to the idea of being a more civil union, a more civilized union, and then war broke out. And when you have a war break out, in your country, you're going to be thinking of things like guns and bullets and tanks, and your country is going to have this need for bloodlust. Do you see what I'm saying? And that really derailed our fight, in my opinion. And so, yeah, let me read some of this. Golden Rule said many other ethnic minorities basically have that, but it's not obvious because they're all pale skinned and move in and out of the Anglo society. What do you mean by that, Golden Rule? NYW said, good morning, Miss O. Miles and Chad. Very good question. It is very ironic how history has played out in the States. Yeah, I agree with that. Mel said, right. I agree, Miss O. That looking in hindsight, absolutely, it hurt us more than it helped. Yeah, but I understand why they made the decision to integrate. Yeah, I do too. I get it. At the time, it was necessary, but at the time, I just feel like at the time of us fighting for integration, we should have been, also thinking economically because we live in a capitalistic country. Money, money is the number one goal. You know what I mean? Money talks over everything. Money even speaks louder than the color of your skin. Do you see what I'm saying? And so I hate that we weren't fighting to build to make our economic base more stronger. That's why I felt like we should have been advocating, really, in hindsight, like you said, for separate but equal. Yes, we need our equal rights. We need our humanitarian rights, but we also need to build our communities up economically so that we can compete, because there is safety in numbers and there is safety in money. Do you see what I'm saying? And especially here in America. And if we had been thinking more along those lines, in my opinion, we would have been better off. But yeah, I absolutely understand where you're coming from with that. Yeah, yeah. Golden Rule said, like Polish or Latino or Italian American identity, even some Asian. NYW says, yes, it did, but why fight another brown person? That was the question back then. Vietnam, when treated like dogs at home. Yeah, that's a good question. hmm However, it was over 100 question for ADO. It was over 100 question for ADO since Revolutionary War. Mal said the most obvious example of us failing economically is that the businesses in our communities are owned by us. Yeah, absolutely, Miles. We no longer have a economic base, and because we are so socio-economically depressed, our communities are collectively. And when I say socio-economically depressed, I mean collectively, not individually. Do you see what I'm saying? Because there are several, hundreds of thousands of upwardly mobile black people, but collectively, as a community, we are socioeconomically depressed. And I just feel like, and that is why, I'm sorry, that is why other races um, come into our communities, and they build up their businesses in our community, because they're so used to us giving our black dollar doesn't circulate at all in our community. As soon as we get paid from our job, we take that money out of our community, because we don't have any business, very very few businesses, not even enough business to make to enable us to be able to compete with other races of people. We take that money and immediately take it out of our communities, because we don't have any sort of economic base really at all, in my opinion. Do you see what I'm saying? And that was also, very harmful to us via integration, in my opinion. The economic base was destroyed. Our black businesses that were doing well, our people stopped, trading with our black businesses because of integration. Because, like I said, a lot of black people truly believe that the white man ice is colder, and that's unfortunate. So yeah, you don't have enough confidence in your own self, your own community, or your own people. So you would rather look elsewhere for goods and services, as well as things like home ownership, and that's unfortunate, you know. So, yeah, it's really an insidious plan, in my opinion. NYW said, however, that was over 100. I read that 100 years. Oh, 100 years for ADOS. Golden Rule said, I agree. It was difficult for them to force. Yeah, it was difficult, because they were literally in a fight for human rights, a fight for, you know, not to be, killed, at random without impunity. They were in a fight, for survival, not even as far as it pertains economically, just to go down the street and not be murdered. What I mean? Just cause you. They were in that kind of mindset. So yeah, I get that too. But like I said, in retrospect, I wish we could have been fighting, economically as well, And so yeah. So yeah. It's just so sad. They stick together more than we black people. Absolutely, the shadows. That's true. Yeah, Ma said that bothered me. It was to cause chaos and dependency, to mentally break down a society in which a lot of it still exists today, in my opinion. Well, yes, I agree. It was to do a lot of things. It was pretty much basically set up. We were given, they agreed to integration. You know, not because they wanted to do the right thing, not because it was the humanitarian thing to do, but the opposite. You see what I'm saying? It was to steal from our community, and pretty much kill our community. That is what it was for. But we did not know that. We do know that now, but it's got to the point to where it really is too late. It even destroyed our moral compass. Do you see what I'm saying? So now you have more black people really, with the moral compass of the Anglo. And because they have the moral compass of the Anglo, you get a whole lot of unfortunate things going on in what's left of your community. You get people speaking out against your community. You get black men speaking out and saying that they're divesting from black women, and even after they've divested from black women, they still speak derogatorily about the black woman, not only about the black woman, but also about the black child. And I didn't even realize the disdain that some people have for our black babies. It hit me like a ton of bricks the other day when I was on Taz and Nala's channel, and they were speaking about the issue of child molestation, and they they spoke about it, in such very blasé terms, that I was taken aback that my people, their moral compass has evaporated to the point to where, you would speak about something so egregious towards a child in such a blasé manner. And so yeah, that really that took me aback. You know what I mean? But you've adapted to somebody else's mentality, a whole other race's train of thought. Totally neglecting your own moral compass. That is why we still go back at each other so bad. I think that we're really, when we're arguing and shouting at each other, like take the internet for instance. There's so much discord back and forth on the internet. I think that we are really very, at the end of the day, we can't articulate what it is that we've lost. And so we just go back and forth, shouting and arguing with each other, because we don't know who to shout and argue with. But instinctively, I'm sorry, we know that who we need to be railing against, what we need to be railing against, is the insidious system of white supremacy racism. But a lot of us are afraid to do that. We don't even know how to do it. We don't have the will to do it. Do you see what I'm saying? And so we rail against each other. We rail against one another because we don't know what to do. That coupled with the cognitive dissonance in the thinking that the white man ice is colder. you know. And so, yeah. It's unfortunate. It's very unfortunate, in my opinion. But y'all, let me divert away from this subject for instance. In NYW, you guys remember the well, I know y'all remember the 4 hour live if you were on there. This is a good example. NYW wrote in that chat, that 4 hour chat, that she had been called a derogatory name. Now, at first, NYW, I thought that you was talking about somebody else on the panel. Were you thinking that I called you a derogatory name? Because I read the comment that you. Sorry about this, guys, but I really need to get this out before I forget about it. Were you thinking that I called you a derogatory name that night? I'm waiting till we respond, y'all. Till she responds, y'all. But anyway, I don't know if she's going to respond or not. But the reason why I asked that question in the middle of all this is because I had started talking about how we go back and forth with one another. Because we really don't direct our anger to who it needs to be directed to. That's why we cut each other down the way that we cut each other down with such vigor and ire or whatever. And if you remember on that 4 hour live, we were speaking about that unfortunate soul over there that has come into this sector. And a lot of people, there were a lot of derogatory terms being shouted out towards some of the people in the live stream, but none of those derogatory terms were coming from me. And so NYW, she mentioned that she didn't understand why. She said, "No, Miss O, not at all." Yeah, see, I thought the way you responded to that comment that I posted under the comment that you made yesterday, when you said you realized after you had listened a bit more, I thought you thought that I called you that name, and I just want to tell you that no, I wouldn't even have had a reason to call you or anybody else, a B or whatever that night. But the reason why I mention that right now is because sometimes we get so caught up, in going back and forth with one another to where we're really arguing with ourselves. We are really not even using our listening ears, and we are not, nor are we, using our critical thinking skills. And so, because we are so, agitated to the point to where the only thing you really hear is you. Do you see what I'm saying? Or the only thing you hear is what you think you think you're hearing, and that is a sign of the aggression that we have going on, in this community, in this online community in particular. So that's why I asked you that question, NYW, and I'm glad you didn't think that I called you that, because I didn't have a cause to call you that, but because of the way you replied to that comment yesterday, I really thought you thought that. And I was like, no, I didn't have a reason to do that. She said it was just a question, nothing negative to the guest. It was an honest question about the generalization. Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Like I said, I saw the comment at the time, but I didn't have time to answer it. And I told you that when wrote it up under the video. And so yeah, I just really wanted to ask you if you thought I called you that. I'm like, well, no. But anyway, moving forward. Sorry about that, guys, but that was a good example, though. That's what popped into my mind, and so y'all want to. Y'all know me. If I got a grievance with you, you gonna know it. It ain't gonna be in passing. You know what I mean? You just gonna really know that I got a grievance with you. And so yeah, I had to bring it up before I forgot about it again. It was really weighing on me. I was like, what in the world? Anywho, moving forward. Like I said, I want you guys to hear a little bit of this speech. I want you to put your listening ears on. I'm also playing this speech for you guys, this debate that had taken place in 1965. And after y'all listen to this, if you're still on here with me, I'm going to open the phone line so that you can tell me, hey, Lady Tia, what do you think or what do you thought of this debate? And this debate, like I said, is between William Baldwin and William F. Buckley, a civil rights advocate being William Baldwin, and a white supremacy racist, being William F. Buckley at Cambridge University in 1965. So let me pull it up. After I begin to play this for you guys, hit the one if you can hear it. Okay, and I really want to know what you guys think about this. And listen to it if you can, and imagine being black and being, no, not even black, being Negro in America in 1965. You see what I'm saying? And so yeah, it's amazing. And so anyway, I'm going to pull it up so we can find it. And the title of this debate is titled, Has the American Dream Been Achieved at the Expense of the American Negro? And I told you guys why the title of my video is At the Expense of the ADOS. Okay, I explained to that earlier. So let me pull this up. And under the video, there's in the description part of the video, the description box, if you will, part of the video, it says that historic debate between James Baldwin versus William F. Buckley Jr. at Cambridge University in 1965 on the question, quote, is the American dream at the expense of the American Negro? And like I said, I'm going to turn this on. If you can hear it, hit the one. If you can't, I will turn it up because I'm playing it on my phone. Okay. Here we go. Let's see.
The following program is from NET, the National Educational Television Network.
Debate. James Baldwin versus William Buckley.
You guys heard it, or do you need me to turn
Has
it
the
up?
American dream been achieved at the expense of the American Negro? This debate was held recently at the Cambridge Union, Cambridge University, England, and was recorded for use by NET.
Well, here we are in the debating hall of the Cambridge Union. Hundreds of undergraduates and myself waiting for what could prove one of the most exciting debates in the whole 150 years of the Union history. I don't think I've ever seen the Union so well attended. There are undergraduates everywhere. They're on the benches, they're on the floor, they're in the galleries, and there are a lot more outside clamoring to get in.
So y'all can hear it. Okay. Thank you.
Huge crowd tonight is this, that the American dream has been achieved at the expense of the American Negro. The debate will open with two undergraduate speakers, one from each side. And then we shall have the first distinguished guest, Mr. James Baldwin, the well-known American novelist who's achieved a worldwide fame with his novel, Another Country. Then opposing the motion will be Mr. William Buckley, also an American, very well known as a conservative in the United States. I must stress a conservative in the American sense, author of a book called Up from Liberalism, and editor of the National Review, one of the early supporters of Senator Goldwater. Well, this is the setting of the debate, and at any moment now, the president will be leading in his officers and his distinguished guests. He'll take his chair, and the debate will begin.
The motion before the House tonight is the American dream is at the expense of the American Negro. The proposer, Mr. David Haycock of Pembroke College, and opposer, Mr. Jeremy Burford of Emmanuel College. Mr. James Baldwin will speak third. Mr. William F. Buckley Jr. will speak fourth. Mr. Haycock is the heir of the House. It is the custom custom of the House for the first speaker in any debate to extend a formal welcome to any visitors to the House. I can honestly say, however, that it is a very great honor to be able to welcome to the House this evening Mr. William Buckley and Mr. James Baldwin. Mr. William Buckley has the reputation of possibly being the most articulate conservative in the United States of America. He was a graduate of Yale, and he first gained a reputation for himself by publishing a book entitled God and Man and Yale. Since then, he has devoted himself to the secular, and this has included Norman Mailer, Kenneth Tynan, Mary McCarthy, and Fidel Castro, none of whom have come out of their confrontations unscathed. At present, his principal occupation is editing a right-wing newspaper in the United States entitled the National Review. Mr. James Baldwin is hardly in need of introduction. His reputation, both as a novelist and as an advocate of civil rights, is international. His third novel, Another Country, has been published as a paperback in England today. Mr. Baldwin and Mr. Buckley are both very welcome to the House this evening. Imagine, Mr. President, a society which above all values freedom and equality. A society in which artificial barriers to fulfillment and achievement are unheard of. A society in which a man may begin his life as a rail splitter and end it as president. A society in which all men are free in every sense of the word. Free to live where they choose, free to work where they choose. Equal in the eyes of the law and every public authority, and equal in the eyes of their fellows. A society, in fact, in which intolerance and prejudice are meaningless terms. Imagine, however, Mr. President, that a condition of this utopia has been the persistent and quite deliberate exploitation of 1/9 of its inhabitants. That 1 man in 9 has been denied those rights which the rest of that society takes for granted. That 1 man in 9 does not have the chance for fulfillment or realization of his innate potentialities. That 1 man in 9 cannot promise his children a secure future and unlimited opportunities. Imagine this, Mr. President, and you have what is, in my opinion, the bitter reality of the American dream. A few weeks ago, Martin Luther King had to hold a nonviolent demonstration in Selma, Alabama, in his drive to register Negro voters. By the end of the week of his demonstrations, he was able to write quite accurately in a national fundraising letter from Selma, Alabama jail, "There are more Negroes in prison with me than there are on the voting rolls." When King wrote that letter, 335 out of 32,700 Negroes in Dallas had the vote, 1% of the Dallas population. After a mass march to the courthouse, 237 Negroes, King among them, were arrested. The following day, 470 children who had deserted their classrooms to protest against King's arrest were charged with juvenile delinquency. 36 adults on the same day were charged with contempt of court for picketing the courthouse while State Circuit Court was in session. On the following day, 111 people were arrested on the same charge, despite their claim that they merely wanted to see the voting registrar. 400 students were arrested and taken to the armory, where many of them spent the night on a cold cement floor. The following day, the demonstration spread to Marion, Alabama. In Marion, Negroes outnumber whites by 11,500 to 6,000 people, and yet only 300 are registered to vote. Negroes in Marion were anxious to test the public accommodation section of the civil rights law. They entered a drugstore, and there they were served with Coca-Cola laced with salt, and were told that hamburgers had risen to $5 each. After the arrest of 15 Negroes for protesting against this treatment, 700 Negroes boycotted their classes next day and marched in orderly fashion to the jail. There they sang civil rights songs until they were warned by a state trooper that they would be arrested if they sung one more song. Of course, they sang another song, and of course, all 700 were arrested. American society has felt fit to use Negro labor. It has felt fit to use the blood of the Negro in 2 world wars. It has felt fit to listen to his music. It has felt fit to laugh at his jokes. And yet, as far as I am concerned, it has never felt fit to give the American Negro a fair deal. And for this reason, Mr. President, I would beg leave to propose the motion that the American dream is at the expense of the American Negro. now call Mr. Jeremy Burford of Emmanuel College to oppose the motion.
Now have Mr. Jeremy Burford of Emmanuel College, who is the first undergraduate opposing the motion.
James Baldwin is well known as one of the most vivid and articulate writers about the Negro problem in America. Mr. Baldwin had a difficult childhood, and he has personally himself suffered discrimination and ill treatment in the South of America. And I would like to say at this time that it is not the purpose of this side of the House to condone that in any way at all. It is not our purpose to oppose civil rights. It is our purpose to oppose this motion. And thank you, sir. Come and collect your fee afterwards. This side of the House denies that the American dream has in any way been helped by this undoubted inequality and suffering of the Negro. We maintain that, in fact, it has hindered the American dream. And if there had been equality, if there had been true freedom of opportunity, the American dream would be very much more advanced than it is now. If the American dream has made any progress, and I think it has been made in spite of the suffering and inequality of the American Negro, and not because of it. Now, it is also implied from this motion that the American dream is encouraging and worsening the suffering of the American Negro. This is emphatically not the case. The American dream, the American economic prosperity and respect for civil liberties has been the main factor in bringing about the undoubted improvement in race relations in America in the last 20 years. And Professor Arnold Rose, who is the author of The Negro in America, which is perhaps definitive work on the subject, who is also a contributor to what was called a freedom pamphlet, so I should imagine that if he has any bias at all, it is in favor of the Negro. He said that this improvement in race relations will be seen in years to come as remarkably quick. And he has put it down to three main causes: increased industrialization and technical advance, the increased social mobility of the American people, and the economic prosperity. And I would put it to this House that industrialization and economic prosperity are two of the main ingredients of the American dream. And at the same time, again, I do not want to say that the Negro in America is treated fairly, but at the same time, the average per capita income of Negroes in America is exactly the same as the average per capita income of people in Great Britain. Now, I found that absolutely amazing, and I understand that some of you do as well. So I have got the reference here from the United States News and World Report of July the 22nd, 1963, in which it points out, this will have to be the last interruption I take, because time is running short.
Mr. President, on point of information, is the Speaker talking of real income or money income?
Yeah, I'm talking of money. I'm talking of money income, and I would not wish to disguise that. I would also say that in terms of this, there are only 5 countries in the world where the income is higher than that of the American Negro. And they do not include countries like West Germany and France and Japan. Now, there are in America 35 Negro millionaires. There are Negro 6,000 doctors and so on. Now, I do not, by saying this, wish to emphasize that the Negro is fairly treated. I merely wish to try and convey a more realistic and objective account of the situation of the Negro. I agree that there are Negroes who are very poor indeed, such as the old gentleman in the South who was talking about some of his wealthier brethren. He was saying, yes, some of these rich Negroes, they put on airs, they're like the bottom figure of a fraction. The bigger they try to be, the smaller they really are. I would repeat, Mr. President, sir, in the last minute I have, that this debate is not whether civil rights should be extended to American Negroes or not. If it were, it would be a very easy motion to argue for and a very easy motion to vote for. The debate tonight concerns whether the American dream is at the expense of the American Negro. That is, whether the American Negro has paid for the American dream with his suffering, or whether the American dream has furthered Negro inequality. And I would deny both those two precepts. I would say that Negro inequality has hindered the American dream, and I would say that the American dream has been very important indeed in furthering civil rights and in furthering freedom for the American Negro. Mr. President, sir, I beg to oppose the motion.
It is now with very great pleasure and a very great sense of honor that I call Mr. James Baldwin to speak third to this motion.
Now we have Mr. James Baldwin, the star of the evening, who has been sitting, listening attentively, getting a wonderful reception here in the Cambridge Union. Tremendous enthusiasm from all sides of the House to Mr. Baldwin, who has been listening to the arguments. Now will bring the voice of actual experience to the debate.
Good evening.
Just want to pause it for a second to let you guys know that this is the voice of James Baldwin, and a lot of us know who James Baldwin is. In case you don't, I mentioned it at the top of the show, but this is James Baldwin, iconic civil rights activist, author, poet, playwright. So this is him speaking as to the question that was posed at the top of the debate. So here he is speaking now. Oh, okay.
I find myself, not for the first time, in the position of a kind of Jeremiah. For example, I don't disagree with Mr. Burford that the inequality suffered by the American Negro population of the United States has hindered the American dream. Indeed, it has. I quarrel with some other things he has to say. The other, deeper element of a certain awkwardness I feel has to do with it has to do with one's point of view. I have to put it that way. One's sense, one's system of reality.
Let me pause this for a second, guys. Straight from the gate says, Miss O, will you be having another live about the turmoil in the sector since T came over? No, I will not. All that I had to say about him being in the sector, I said it in that 4-hour live that I did the other day. And if you haven't seen that 4-hour live, it's the video before this video. I've already addressed it. I've already had to say everything I had to say about that, and I won't be revisiting that subject. But anyway, let's continue with James Baldwin, okay, guys?
It would seem to me the proposition before the House, if I put it that way, is the American dream at the expense of the American Negro, or the American dream is at the expense of the American Negro, is a question hideously loaded, and that one's response to that question, or one's reaction to that question, has to depend on the effect on where you find yourself in the world, what your sense of reality is, what your system of reality is. That is, it depends on assumptions which we hold so deeply as to be scarcely aware of them. A white South African, or a Mississippi sharecropper, or a Mississippi sheriff, or a Frenchman driven out of Algeria, all have at the bottom a system of reality which compels them to, for example, in the case of the French exiles from Algeria, to defend French reasons for having ruled Algeria. The Mississippi or the Alabama sheriff, who really does believe when he's facing a Negro boy or girl that this woman, this man, this child must be insane to attack the system to which he owes his entire identity. Of course, for such a person, the proposition of which we're trying to discuss here tonight does not exist. And on the other hand, I have to speak as one of the people who've been most attacked by what we must now here call the Western or the European system of reality. What white people in the world, the white doctrine of white supremacy, I hate to say it here, comes from Europe. That's how it got to America. Beneath then, what everyone's reaction to this proposition has to be the question of whether or not civilizations can be considered as such equal, or whether one civilization has the right to overtake and subjugate and in fact to destroy another. Now what happens when that happens? Leaving aside all the physical facts which one can quote, leaving aside rape or murder, leaving aside the bloody catalog of oppression, which we are in one way too familiar with already, what this does to the subjugated, the most private, the most serious thing this does to the subjugated, is to destroy his sense of reality. It destroys, for example, his father's authority over him. His father can no longer tell him anything because the past has disappeared, and his father has no power in the world. This means, in the case of an American Negro, born in that glittering republic, and at the moment you are born, since you don't know any better, every stick and stone and every face is white, and since you have not yet seen a mirror, you suppose that you are too. It comes as a great shock around the age of 5 or 6 or 7 to discover that the flag to which you have pledged allegiance, along with everybody else, has not pledged allegiance to you. It comes as a great shock to discover that Gary Cooper killing off the Indians, when you were rooting for Gary Cooper, that the Indians were you. It comes as a great shock to discover that the country, which is your birthplace, and to which you owe your life and your identity, has not in its whole system of reality evolved any place for you. The disaffection, the demoralization, and the gap between one person and another, only on the basis of the color of their skins, begins there and accelerates throughout a whole lifetime. So that presently you realize you're 30 and are having a terrible time managing to trust your countrymen. By the time you are 30, you have been through a certain kind of mill. And the most serious effect of the mill you've been through is again not the catalog of disaster. The policemen, the taxi drivers, the waiters, the landlady, the landlord, the banks, the insurance companies, the millions of details, 24 hours of every day, which spell out to you that you are a worthless human being. It is not that. It's by that time you've begun to see it happening in your daughter or your son or your niece or your nephew. You are 30 by now, and nothing you have done has helped you to escape the trap. But what is worse than that is that nothing you have done, and as far as you can tell, nothing you can do, will save your son or your daughter from meeting the same disaster and not impossibly coming to the same end. Now, we're speaking about expense. I suppose there are several ways to address oneself to some attempt to define what that word means here. Let me put it this way, that from a very literal point of view, the harbors and the ports and the railroads of the country, the economy, especially of the southern states, could not conceivably be what it has become if they had not had, and do not still have indeed, and for so long, so many generations, cheap labor. I am stating very seriously, and this is not an overstatement, that I picked the cotton. and I carried it to market. And I built the railroad under someone else's whip for nothing. For nothing. The Southern oligarchy, which has until today so much power in Washington, and therefore some power in the world, was created by my labor and my sweat, and the violation of my women and the murder of my children. This, in the land of the free and the home of the brave. And no one can challenge that statement. It is a matter of historical record.
Wow.
In another way, this dream, and we'll get to the dream in a moment, is at the expense of the American Negro. You watch this in the Deep South in great relief, but not only in the Deep South. In the Deep South, you are dealing with a sheriff or a landlord or a landlady or the girl at the Western Union desk. And she doesn't know quite who she's dealing with, by which I mean that if you're not part of the town, and if you are a northern nigger, it shows in millions of ways. So she simply knows that it's an unknown quantity, and she wants to have nothing to do with it. So she won't talk to you. You have to wait for a while to get your telegram. Okay, we all know this. We've been through it. And by the time you get to be a man, it's very easy to deal with. But what is happening in the poor woman, the poor man's mind, is this. They've been raised to believe, and by now they helplessly believe, that no matter how terrible their lives may be, and their lives have been quite terrible, and no matter how far they fall, no matter what disaster overtakes them, they have one enormous knowledge and consolation, which is like a heavenly revelation. At least they are not black. Now I suggest that of all the terrible things that can happen to a human being, that is one of the worst. I suggest that what has happened to white Southerners is in some ways, after all, much worse than what has happened to Negroes there. Because Sheriff Clark in Selma, Alabama, cannot be considered, no one can be dismissed as a total monster. I'm sure he loves his wife, his children. I'm sure that, he likes to get drunk. He's, after all, one's got to assume, and he is visibly a man like me. But he doesn't know what drives him to use the club, to menace with the gun, and to use the cattle prod. Something awful must have happened to a human being to be able to put a cattle prod against a woman's breast, for example. What happens to the woman is gaslit. What happens to the man who does it is in some ways much, much worse. This is being done, after all, not 100 years ago, but in 1965, in a country which is blessed with what we call prosperity, a word we won't examine too closely, with a certain kind of social coherence, which calls itself a civilized nation and which espouses the notion of the freedom of the world. And it is perfectly true from the point of view now simply of an American Negro. Any American Negro watching this, no matter where he is, from the vantage point of Harlem, which is another terrible place, has to say to himself, in spite of what the government says we can't do anything about it. But those are white people being murdered in Mississippi work farms, being carried off to jail. Those are white children running up and down the streets. The government would find some way of doing something about it. We have a civil rights bill now. We had an amendment, the 15th Amendment, nearly 100 years ago. I hate to sound again like an Old Testament prophet, but if the amendment was not honored then, I don't have any reason for believing the civil rights bill will be honored now. And after all, one's been there since before, a lot of other people got there. If one has got to prove one's title to the land. Isn't 400 years enough? 400 years, at least 3 wars. The American soil is full of the corpses of my ancestors. Why is my freedom or my citizenship or my right to live there, how is it conceivably a question now? And I suggest further that in the same way, the moral life of Alabama sheriffs and poor Alabama ladies, white ladies, that their moral lives have been destroyed by the plague called color, that the American sense of reality has been corrupted by it. At the risk of sounding excessive, what I always felt when I finally left the country, found myself abroad in other places, and watched Americans abroad. And these are my countrymen. And I do care about them. And even if I didn't, there is something between us. We have the same shorthand. I know. When I look at a girl or a boy from Tennessee, where they came from in Tennessee, and what that means. No Englishman knows that, no Frenchman, no one in the world knows that except another black man who comes from the same place. One watches these lonely people denying the only kin they have. We talk about integration in America as though it was some great new conundrum. The problem in America is that we've been integrated for a very long time. Put me next to any African, and you will see what I mean. And my grandmother was not a rapist. What we are not facing is the results of what we've done. What one begs the American people to do for all our sakes is simply to accept our history. I was there not only as a slave, but also as a concubine. One knows the power, after all, which can be used against another person if you've got absolute power over that person. It seemed to me when I watched Americans in Europe that what they didn't know of Europeans was what they didn't know about me. They weren't trying, for example, to be nasty to the French girl or rude to the French waiter. They didn't know they hurt their feelings. They didn't have any sense that this particular woman, this particular man, though they spoke another language and had different manners and ways, was a human being. And they walked over them with the same kind of bland ignorance, condescension, charming and cheerful, with which they'd always patted me on the head and called me shine, and were upset when I was upset. What is relevant about this is that whereas 40 years ago when I was born, the question of having to deal with what is unspoken by the subjugated, what is said to the master, of having to deal with this reality was a very remote possibility. It was in no one's mind. When I was growing up, I was taught in American history books that Africa had no history, and neither did I. That I was a savage, about whom the less said the better, who had been saved by Europe and brought to America. And of course, I believed it. I didn't have much choice. Those are the only books there were. Everyone else seemed to agree. If you walk out of Harlem, ride out of Harlem, downtown, the world agrees. What you see is much bigger, cleaner, whiter, richer, safer than where you are. They collect the garbage. People obviously can pay their life insurance. The children look happy, safe. You're not. And you go back home. And it would seem then, of course, that it's an act of God, that this is true, that you belong where white people have put you. It is only since the Second World War that there's been a counter image in the world. And that image not come about through any legislation on the part of any American government, but through the fact that Africa was suddenly on the stage of the world, and the Africans had to be dealt with in a way that had never been dealt with before. This gave an American Negro for the first time a sense of himself beyond a savage or a clown. It has created and will create a great many conundrums. One of the great things that the white world does not know, but I think I do know, is that black people are just like everybody else. One has used the myth of Negro and the myth of color to pretend and to assume that you are dealing essentially with something exotic, bizarre, and practically, according to human laws, unknown. Alas, that is not true. We are also mercenaries, dictators, murderers, liars. We are human too. What is crucial here is that unless we can manage to establish some kind of dialogue between those people whom I pretend has paid for the American dream and those other people who have not achieved it, we will be in terrible trouble. I want to say at the end, at the last, is that is what concerns me most. We are sitting in this room and we are all, at least we like to think we are, relatively civilized. And we can talk to each other at least on certain levels. So that we could walk out of here assuming that the measure of our enlightenment, or at least our politeness, has some effect on the world. It may not. I remember, for example, when the ex-Attorney General, Mr. Robert Kennedy, said that it was conceivable that in 40 years in America we might have a Negro president. And that sounded like a very emancipated statement, I suppose, to white people. They were not in Harlem when this statement was first heard, and did not hear, and possibly will never hear, the laughter and the bitterness and the scorn with which the statement was greeted. From the point of view of the man in the Harlem barbershop, Bobby Kennedy only got here yesterday. And now he's already on his way to the presidency. We've been here for 400 years, and now he tells us that maybe in 40 years, if you're good, we may let you become president. What is dangerous here is the turning away from anything any white American says. The reason for the political hesitation and in spite of the Johnson landslide is the one who's been betrayed by American politicians for so long. And I'm a grown man, and perhaps I can be reasoned with. I certainly hope I can be. But I don't know, and neither does Martin Luther King. None of us know how to deal with those other people whom the white world has so long ignored, who don't believe anything the white world says, and don't entirely believe anything I or Martin say. And one can't blame them. You watch what has happened to them in less than 20 years. It seems to me that the city of New York, for example, this is my last point, which had Negroes in it for a very long time. If the city of New York were able, as it has indeed been able, in the last 15 years to reconstruct itself, tear down buildings and raise great new ones, downtown and for money, and has done nothing whatever except build housing projects in the ghetto for the Negroes. And of course the Negroes hate it. Presently the property does indeed deteriorate because the children cannot bear it. They want to get out of the ghetto. If the American pretensions were based on more solid, a more honest assessment of life and of themselves, it would not mean for Negroes, when someone says urban renewal, that Negroes simply going to be thrown out into the streets, which is what it does mean now. This is not an act of God. We're dealing with a society made and ruled by men. If the American Negro had not been present in America, I am convinced that the history of the American labor movement would be much more edifying than it is. It is a terrible thing for an entire people to surrender to the notion that 1/9 of its population is beneath them. And until that moment, until the moment comes when we, the American people, are able to accept the fact that I have to accept, for example, that my ancestors are both white and black, that on that continent we are trying to forge a new identity for which we need each other, and that I am not a ward of America. I am not an object of missionary charity. I am one of the people who built the country. Until this moment, there is scarcely any hope for the American dream, because the people who are denied participation in it, by their very presence, will wreck it. And if that happens, it's a very grave moment for the West. Thank you.
Wow. What I found fascinating about what James Baldwin just spoke of, the conditions of the ADOS in America in 1965 are the same conditions that we are dealing with here in 2020. How is it possible for a what is supposed to be a just, free country to treat a whole race of people this in the same manner that they treated them when they were fighting for their civil and human rights, treated them as nothing more than cattle, regarded them less than they regard their cattle? How is it that in 2020 that we are still seen as 3/5 of a human being? How is it in 2020 that you hear this black man at this university speaking about the conditions of his people at that time in 1965 and 2020, after we have had a if you will, black president? After that, we are still treated the same way. How is that possible? What does that say about the moral compass in this country? What does that say, actually, moreover, what does that say about us? And that is the question that I pose and that I would like you guys to expound on. What does that say about us? Because we have a lot of time, a lot of times, even in this sector, I look at YouTube as and a lot of us do, as a microcosm of what's going on in our own community. We call this sector, yes, it is an algorithm, but in this sector, it is predominantly black, for instance. When I'm in the woke sector, if you will, it's predominantly a black sector. But why aren't we speaking of things such as advancing our humanitarianism towards one another? Why do our men, which are supposed to be the leaders in our community, what's left of it, speak so derogatorily and rail so much against the women in that community when they're the mothers and the wives and the daughters in that community? Why do you have so much disdain for these women when you are supposed to be the ones that are protecting uh, you know, and the children, when you are supposed to be the one protecting these members of your community? Why has the man, which is supposed to be the head of the community and is the head of every other community in this country in particular, why has he chosen to shirk his duties? Does he fear the white man to the point to where he wants to further assimilate himself into that white man by demeaning and degrading his own race, by divesting in his own race? Because see, you can divest from your community. You can become upwardly mobile in your community. But what you can never divest from is your blackness. So knowing all this, that you can never be any other color of skin except your black skin, why do you then choose to speak derogatorily about that skin color? Speak derogatorily, of those that you are supposed to be protecting. It's very fascinating to me that I heard this black man in 1965 speak so eloquently about the conditions of his people, speak with so much passion and so much, need for another race of people to understand where he's coming from so that you might see him as something other than cattle. You heard that black man in front of all of those white people speaking so eloquently and standing up for his people. What has happened to that? Because the only thing I see on the internet, for example, like I said, which is a microcosm of what's going on in our own communities, the only thing I see that many of these black men speaking about today is leaving the community alone. And because you can't shed the color of your skin, you will choose to beat it down with words online. You get mad because you can't beat it down without some kind of punishment. You know, from the dominant society. You can no longer, beat it like it's a unwanted dog or something. And you mad at that. You get mad at women in your community that have your children. You get mad at them for having to go to the justice system in order for you to take some kind of monetary responsibility of your child. You don't even want to take care of your own children. You have to get the white man to make you take care of your children, or he gonna take away your freedom. So how is it that integration, with the onslaught of integration, the onslaught of a black president, the slot of all of these things that we were fighting for in the 60s under the civil rights movement, how has all of that, a lot of that has come to pass? You are integrated. You can even sleep with the white woman. You see what I'm saying? But being given all of that, you can sleep more comfortably at night. Why has your moral compass dissolved, your way of thinking dissolved into thinking about your people in the same way that they think about your people? That's my question. I don't understand. I don't even have to play William F. Buckley's response because, like I said, he was pretty much, a white supremacist. So we can imagine what his response to the debate was going to be. And but moreover, the questions that we should be asking at this day and age are, why have we turned on us? Why have we adapted the same mindset that the white man has for us? Why do we see ourselves, many of us, not all of us, why do we see ourselves the same way that they see us? When our elders fought so hard to be seen as more than 3/5 of a human being. Why is it we fight so hard to keep it that way? You know, and so it's just very unfortunate. You know, and so yeah. Lady Tia says sometimes I feel defeated with our people. It's so frustrating. Yeah, sometimes I'm frustrated, but moreover, more than feeling frustrated, I feel sad. It's exhausting to, like, even when you come online. Uh, when I used to, like when I first started in this sector, when we go back and forth with one another, at first I saw it as just something that we do in jest. It's fun. This is how we go back and forth. A lot of times, in our own homes, we pick with each other. That's what we do. That's how we communicate. But now it's to the point to where it's become vicious. Do you see what I'm saying? It's vicious. And the reason why I say it's vicious now and it's cutthroat, you don't even want to hear black people speaking on the issues of black people anymore. Do you see? Not real issues, like the way James Baldwin spoke so eloquently about the plight of his people. You can't even get oh shoot, my thing is messing up. Can y'all still hear me? If you can still hear me, hit the one. And please hit the like button because they can flag. Cloud, if you can still hear me, if you're in the room, hit the one. Y'all can still hear me? Okay, because the thing just blinked out on me. But anyway, yeah, it's just very interesting. But you can get, 1,000 people in the room, when you talking nonsense. when you clowning or shining, like James Baldwin said, you know, and who we haven't advanced at all, you know, but the only thing that we can talk about and get down with, you know, is somebody going back and forth like on a very basic level. Do you see what I'm saying? It's not fun for me anymore. Like I can't really do it anymore. It's just like I heard earlier, we talking about this in honor of Dr. King, and somebody made a comment asking me, was I going to talk about what some other Negro got to say about whatever's going on, you know, trivial in this sector, when I already spoke about it. You see how that worked? If I was to stop right now and start talking about that, shoot, I have way more than 17 or 18 or even 16 people in the room. You know, as opposed to talking about the plight of our people, how our plight then in 1965 is the same as and even worse, you know, now than it was then. Because I think that it's worse, you know, now because we don't even want to talk about it. We don't even want to fight for the upliftment of our community collectively. We don't want to fight and rail against the fact that, you know, this white supremacist system wants to keep us cast in the role of 3/5 of a human being. So much so to the point that we don't even want to be cast or seen as anything other than 3/5 of a human being. Because if we did, why wouldn't we truly be invested in that conversation at least some of the time? You know. So anyway, that is pretty much what I had to say about it. But like I said, I'm open these phone lines, you know, and that was what I had to contribute to Martin Luther King Jr. Day, which is going to be celebrated tomorrow. Do you see what I'm saying? I just wanted to put that question out. So I wanted to, you know, pose that question. You know, I mean, it's cute and it's fun when we go at it, you know, for sport or whatever. But every once in a while, don't you want to critically think about what's really going on? What's really going on with our people in our communities? Like at no point in time do you ever really want to face that? And could that be the reason why we are still where we were in 1965? It's just that now nobody like literally wants to deal with it. They would rather be pacified. You know, many of our people would rather be pacified, would rather rail against us, would rather, you know, try to further assimilate. You can never assimilate yourself out of your blackness. It ain't never going to, your struggle is never going to go away. You're going to be, you was born black, you're going to die black. And everything in between you being born black and dying black, that is your struggle. That is your plight. You cannot run away from that. You see what I'm saying? And y'all know that I like to love to roast and gag and laugh. I'm good with that. You know, but every once in a while, in between the roasting and the gagging, why not have a real discussion about real issues that's plaguing us collectively on a level beyond roasting and gagging and name calling? Why can't we move any further than roasting and gagging? You know. Good morning, Art New Style, Wonder Woman. Good morning. So that is the question that I pose. Why can't we move? And do we even want to? In our actuality, do we even want to move past the roast and the gag? Do we even want to really move past the shucking and jiving, or have we become complacent? Have we become comfortable with that? And because we become comfortable with that, do we even want to push the envelope? Do we want to be seen as anything other than 3/5 of a human being at this day and age? Do we even want to? Are we just good with it now? You see what I'm saying? You know. Are we good with it? Are we good with being seen as 3/5 of a human being? That is my question. So anyway, I'm going to open these phone lines. Now, when I open these phone lines, I hope that somebody will call in and answer that question for me. But when I open the phone lines, like I said, this was my presentation. I hope you guys liked it. You can call in and ask, or whatever comment that you have about whatever, feel welcome, as long as you do it respectfully, and as long as you do it without a whole bunch of rah rah and cursing. Okay, because I don't want to rah rah today. You see what I'm saying? I just want us to have a conversation without the rah rah. That's what I want. Lady Tia said we have to be the example we want to see. You see, here's the thing about that, Lady Tia. I agree. But as adults, as grown people, do we really need an example as it pertains to how to conduct ourselves civilly amongst one another? Because we grown. Most of us on my channel, anyway, we over 30 years old. Now, if you're 30 years old and you don't know how to conduct yourself properly as you should, what does that say about you? Because, see, many of us, we know that many of us suffer from arrested development. You get stuck in a child mindset. And that's actually a good question. Do we need to be teaching adults how to act like adults? Have we fallen so far behind mentally that adults don't even know how to conduct themselves anymore? Klaus said, many of us would rather be entertained than educated until they feel safer. I think you're right, Klaus. But here's the thing, though. When that white man see you in the street, he don't care if you're developmentally delayed or not. If he feel like he want to call you a criminal and say you robbed the bank, even though you just went to the grocery store for some milk, he want to say you did that so he can shoot you down like a dog and not have to pay for it. That's what he gonna do. He don't know that you one of them black men that don't even like your own people. He don't know that the only thing you want to do is shuck and jive just so you can be safe. Do you see what I'm saying? He don't know that you've been done divested from your community. He don't know that though. That's what I find fascinating. So yeah. But anyway, like I said, I'm opening these phone lines. Cloud, do you still have that number? Let me type this number in the chat. I need to fix the phone too first. But I want to know what you guys think about it. If you think anything about it at all. And I ain't did this in a long time, but I was gonna do it on StreamYard, but I think you can get more commentary from people off of StreamYard, because on StreamYard you can just add, like 6 person at a time or whatever, and all of this and all that, and it's really chaos, and I can control the situation better when we're talking amongst each other if I'm using a phone as opposed to that StreamYard thing. So I'm gonna type the number in here. Y'all feel free to call in and sound off. And if you don't want to call in and sound off, that's good too. But like I said, you can sound off about whatever, whatever type of grievance that you have. Feel free to call in and sound off about it. But be respectful to my platform, because I don't do this often. I'm typing this number. So, Clyde, I'm typing this number, and I want you to keep reposting it, okay? Hold on a minute. And the code is... And I have to call the number up, by the way, too. Okay, Cloud, here's the number. If you could keep putting it in the chat for me while I actually dial the number my own self, it'd be great.
provided by freeconferencecall.com. Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Oh, shoot. That's not the right one. Shoot. Hold on, y'all.
Access code or phone number you have dialed isn't correct.
I know.
Please check your credentials and try again. You entered 301-604. Please re-enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
Oh, shit.
Welcome. This service is provided by freeconferencecall.com. Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign. If you are the host, press star now. Please enter your PIN followed by the pound or hash. Thank you. There is one host in this conference.
Okay, so the phone lines are now open. Cloud, if you could repost that number for me. If you guys want to call in and add some context to this conversation, we'll try to do that for a few minutes if you guys want to. And so, yeah, let's see. And so, anyway, but like I said, that was pretty much my presentation in honor of Martin Luther King Jr. Day. I hope you guys got something out of that debate. Do you see what I'm saying? And so, I'm assuming we don't have any takers. So let me cut this godforsaken music off. But the phone line is still open if y'all want to call in. So it just is what it is. I don't even care. Yeah, let me cut that down because I pretty much figured that. And then people always want to know why I don't hardly ever do this sort of thing. It's because really nobody wants to participate. That is the reason why I never hardly do it. But then you'll turn around and ask me to do it, and then you won't participate. You see how that works? But anyway, okay. But yeah. So we'll give it about 5 more minutes because that's pretty much all I had. That's the reason why I wanted to open the lines in the first place. And after that, we'll just get off of here. Because we already been on here for an hour, 37 minutes anyway. But thank you guys so much for sitting through my presentation. I really appreciate that. And I hope you guys got something out of that. Listening to those very, very prolific words of the late James Baldwin. And I think it's such a shame that we don't put such an emphasis on us anymore. It's really very sad, but it is what it is. You know, I really don't have any explanations anymore as to why we no longer put an emphasis on our plight. Not really. You know, we all just want to go along, as it pertains to those outside of our community. You know, we just want to go along to get along. You know, we don't want to make it better. We don't want to make it worse. We just want to go along to get along. If that's what you want to do, I can respect that. That's you. Says, I believe that others have taken advantage of the dream without having to compromise as much as ADOS. I agree with that. That is why the title of the video is what it is. Thanks for pointing that out because you're absolutely right about that. Others have taken advantage of the dream. Others have also taken advantage of the fact that to know one way for sure that you could, really build up your business in this community in particular is to take advantage of the dream in this community in particular. Call in, Claude. I appreciate it. Because you never call in. And so, yeah, but I agree with that, Celestia Tarot. Absolutely. I agree with that. It's just, don't you think that it's a shame, though, that we don't want to participate in the dream, collectively? And so, yeah, I find that fascinating. On an individual basis, yes, but collectively as a community, no. In my opinion, we don't do that. And that's unfortunate. So, yeah, I was going to try to see if Cloud was going to call in. Same as UK. Is that right, Celestial Turbo? Really? Oh, wow. I didn't know that about the UK. Oh, wow. So I'm assuming they have become complacent as well. You should never, become complacent, it being on the bottom. You should never be good with that. Do you see what I'm saying? It's a very dangerous situation. NYW said all day hence the immigrant stance. Others have made it under the dream, but what is wrong with you? Yeah, yeah. Oh, I think, well, somebody's on the phone. Anyway, let me see. Hold on. Let me try to oh, shoot. I don't think I had to work the darn thing now. Hello. Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Oh, wait a minute. Hey.
Hello?
I'm sorry, I didn't have my phone on on speaker. Who am I talking to?
Oh, yeah, this is Claude.
Hey, Cloud, how you doing?
In fact, I'm going to turn mine down because I don't want to.
Oh, yeah, I can hear it in the background. I haven't heard your voice in so long. I forgot how you sounded.
And this is actually, as you know, very rare for me. I've never called in.
I know. I can't believe you're calling it now.
And I'm gonna be honest, I really don't call them because I want, it's for the push watchers. I'm the moderator. I'm not trying to interfere. I'm just trying to,
Well, now, Cloud, come on.
Your channel and your platform. Listen, I respect it to the utmost.
I know, Cloud.
I respect you to the utmost.
I know, Cloud, but I never want you thinking. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
But showing love is respecting your platform, and that's what I'm going, do my best to do.
That's what you do.
And you know what? I'm not lost on the fact that we, and obviously I know that we're grateful for the 19 people that are in the chat, but it is very, very funny how there's 19 people on the chat room that's talking about something that's beneficial for our people.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're beefing with, the soup of the day, quote unquote, it'll be like 200-300 people in the chat.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
That's unfortunately the mindset when it comes to a lot of our people.
Yeah. You're right, Claude. You're right.
I totally agree with you. It is a much more dangerous time here in 2020 than it's ever been in the 50s, 40s, 50s, and 60s.
Yep.
And it's for the simple fact that at least back then, we can talk about how separate but equal was quote unquote unfair, unjust, and it was to a point. But the thing is, we actually owned things back then. There was the black-owned businesses, there was the Negro leagues and things of that nature. Now, since we wanted to assimilate so quickly with the so-called white man, look how that's worked out. We own basically nothing. It's bad enough that the money is printed upon nothing in this country as it is. But that's, I guess, another chapter in another book. But it is very disheartening, no question about it, especially when you look at some of our so-called celebrities. They think that they have what I like to call a seat at the table. That is what's happened to a lot of them. Look at Oprah. And Bill Cosby too. I have to be fair. Now, he doesn't deserve what's happened to him.
Right.
But he thought he had a seat at the table.
He did, didn't he?
And you see how that worked out for him.
Yeah.
many of these so-called. Look at Chris Brown.
Oh,
I mean, he's another one. There's so many
yeah,
levels. It's very sad.
yeah,
I mean, the celebrities even in the 50s and 60s stood up
yes,
for our rights.
yeah. They don't
Look
anymore.
at Harry Belafonte is 90 plus years old, and he's still fighting for us. You can talk about, he's not married to one of our women, and I understand that. Trust me, that's another thing. But he has put his life on the line for all these years and still continues to do it. When you have people who are much higher profile and could make a bigger impact at this time, because let's face it, at his advanced age, it is very limited for him. And they refuse to put their, I mean, we are, a lot of our men are just cowards. Let's just call it what it is.
Yeah.
A lot of them, and it is very disheartening.
Yeah.
Very disheartening.
Yeah, I agree, Cloud. I mean, if you hear some of the conversations, you know, like when I was talking about why I got so disturbed the other day when I was over there in the other sector, the conversations coming from the men, oh my goodness, Cloud. Oh, and you know what I mean too. And it's just so unfortunate. You know what I mean? First it'll make you mad, then it'll make you sad like they have no fight at all. You know. And so it's true when they say that, you know, with the exception of a few men like you, we don't have a warrior class anymore. They would rather run away and tuck tail behind a white woman.
You know, I've always said it, and I will say it again. That black man is not going anywhere without that black woman. Black woman's going absolutely nowhere without that black man.
Yep.
The gender wars that's going on is an absolute joke.
Yep.
And listen, I'm not even going to bring up this guy's name, and he wandered into this sector, which has become a complete farce.
Yeah.
And you know how I already feel about them. And listen, the sector is entertaining for a minute. There, you know that there are very few people that I even deal with as far as give them my time and energy and in this sector.
Yeah.
I mean, there's only a handful, you know that.
Oh yeah.
And that's outside of you, of course. But and then obviously I'm not going to stick up for this guy. I can't stick up for anybody that is anti our women.
But Cloud, they seem so
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm just saying, I'm glad you brought him up and we're talking about timing, but they seem so enthralled by him. It's like on the surface, you would think that they would be offended by him, and they're saying they're offended by him, but it's like he's some kind of movie star or something, and everybody just want to keep talking about him as opposed to blacking him out. And then you have the either they're infatuated with him, or you know, and they trying to say they hate him, or they cash apping him and big upping him for what he's saying. They're like not getting the fact that even the ones that he's done talked about, spoke very derogatorily about, even they'll be like, well, some of the stuff he say is true. I'm like, where? When? What he say is true? It's just very. I'm fascinated by the whole. I've never seen a section of people embrace Tommy Sotomayor like this sector has embraced him. I mean, they keep popping on his show. They dominate his chat. He don't care nothing about them, Cloud. They just content to him. They don't care. He don't care what they think one way or the other. That they just like won't. It seems like they trying hard to be heard for that man to hear them. I'm thinking, why? But yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. Yeah, since they want to talk about it, let's talk about why they such infatuated by that thing over there. That is crazy to me. I don't get it.
You know, I'm glad that. I mean, I'm glad you didn't give that person any shine, and I will not mention his name. I mean, his name is not worth mentioning. I mean, that's just for me, obviously. But and you know, he's getting exactly what he wanted, which is, I mean, this is what he's a shock jock. That's what he is. He's no different from Howard Stern, Wendy Williams, and those guys. He's just on a smaller scale. He's absolutely no different as far as I'm concerned. and for people to try and give him money, give him even their time, that lets you know how much we truly hate each other. So,
Yes.
That's all it is. It is a further indictment of us and our self-hate.
Yeah.
That's all this is. When you look at guys like that and Synthetic One and the so-called Manosphere, the Manosphere, they should change their name. First and foremost, those are not men. That's the Manosphere. That's not the Manosphere.
Yeah.
Because men, we are supposed to be a complement to our other half.
Yeah.
We are supposed to be made for each other.
Yeah. I felt like, but you know what, Claude? I felt it was so unfortunate how when I cut on my, when I get on YouTube and I see going down my timeline videos from all these females in particular, since you said that right there, they have jumped on his channel, only not realizing that the only reason why he is going to allow you to be on his channel is so that he can clown you. It's so that he can make a fool of you. But they don't realize that the self-esteem is so low to the point they're jumping on his panel basically because they want him to give them a pat on the head or validate them, as opposed to blacking him out. And they're doing it under guise of it's just content. No, it's more than that. It's more than that. You're dealing with your self-esteem. If you're dealing with this fool in any capacity other than blacking him out, you're not realizing what's going on. I found it very fascinating. Very fascinating. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, what in the world is going on? What in the world?
You know what? I don't think they care, some of them. I really don't.
I agree.
I think with some of them, it's like, you know what? Any publicity is good publicity. They think.
Yeah.
I really think that.
Yeah.
I don't think these people are not thinking. Some of them. Obviously, I can't speak for them, but they figure, you know what? I'm gonna go over there, put my name on there, let it know that I went over there. It's very sad.
Like some kind of badge of honor.
Sad. But I guess if anything for they did the attention that they didn't get from whoever they want to get it from, they figured they get it from this guy. Which is an absolute joke because he's laughing at them all the way.
Yes.
That's all he's doing.
Yes, you're a whole grown woman and you're gonna let somebody just pretty much make a clown out of you? And the whole time you're seeking his validation? You can never get the validation from somebody as demented as that. But what does that say about you? I'm trying, child. I couldn't believe it, Crowd. I agree. It's fascinating to me. I've never seen a sector embrace that thing such as this sector has embraced him. I've never seen anything like it.
Well, we have embraced all the interlopers as far as
oh yeah,
we've embraced the so-called German sausage. We've embraced the wrench. We've embraced devolving whatever the heck they call themselves. So they figured, you know what? Why not embrace this guy?
Yeah.
So we have opened the door for this to happen. This is what I talked about before in the Keepers of the Gate. We've spoken.
Yeah.
Through videos. Of course.
Right.
We've spoken about this.
Yeah.
But you know what? We choose. Listen. One of my sayings is there's no cure for stupid.
Yeah.
And that's further proof. I'm sorry to say it, but after a while, man, I'm not sugarcoating anything.
Yeah, me either, Claude.
And there's absolutely no cure, and that's why we get along so well.
Yeah.
Because we have that synergy, we have that symbiotic relationship.
Absolutely.
Because I have no tolerance for BS.
Nope.
I don't. Especially when it comes to our people. I am because I'm hard on myself.
Yeah.
So yes, I'm gonna be hard on when it comes to our people.
Absolutely.
And it's absolutely disgraceful.
Yeah.
We have let everybody in here.
Yeah.
Without impunity. There's no punishment for any of the BS that they give out. If anything, they get more followers.
Yeah.
And then these followers are proud to do it.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, look what he's doing. I mean, look at Proactive A. I mean, that clown should not be in our sector either, but she's another one who's black when it's convenient.
Okay.
I can't stand those. I'm sorry. You want to call me prejudiced or racist? I'll deal with the prejudice part, yes, but obviously we can't be racist.
Absolutely.
But please, I mean, we've given that clown a pass for eons.
Yeah.
And she's done nothing but disrespect our people. And she has a following a mile wide. It's a joke.
Yeah, absolute joke.
But, you know.
Well, you're absolutely right.
You just shake your head and just, keep it moving.
You're absolutely right. I ain't never seen nothing like it. I was like, what in the world? They are still entertaining madness? Like, what is really going on here? I just shake my head.
And they're not even entertaining. That's what even makes it worse. It's not like they're any good.
Yeah.
I mean, it's bad enough that they're clowns as it is, but they're not even entertaining clowns. They're dry as hell. Boring. I mean, it's not like, wow, you know what? I can't stand him, but man, he sure is funny, or he sure can do. At least Side Babe can halfway sing. But I mean, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
I mean, Proactive, she brings nothing to the table.
Yep.
German sausage, nothing to the table.
Nothing.
I mean, please name that person that we've been discussing. He brings absolutely nothing to the table. But
he doesn't.
All this black women in their weaves,
yeah,
E's and H's. That's all he brings to the table. He brings absolutely nothing to the table.
Yeah. And it's sad that they feel like they have to validate themselves for him. Like they have to explain why they are the way that they are to him. I'm thinking, who is he? Like, what is wrong with y'all? Like, what goes on with you offline that has you thinking that you need to validate yourself or bow down to that trash box? Like, really?
Listen, you have no self-esteem when you choose to be a pick-me.
Yes.
Ashy Larry.
Absolutely.
That's who he is. He's no different from Ashy Larry. That's who he is. That's what he is.
Absolutely.
And for these women to make themselves pick-me's for that clown,
yes,
let you know who they are.
Yeah.
What they're about.
Yeah. They're big up in them. They super chatting them. They backing him up. They defending them. You know what I mean? And then the other side, they want to pop on the show and try to, defend themselves against the indefensible. I'm like, child, why don't y'all black that creek now and move on with it? It's ridiculous. But see, what the deal is, they detail. I know what's going on. See, the problem is that a lot of people in the sector, because they only report on one another, like it's no real content. And see, the main driver of the content, whether they want to admit it or not, is the very person that they wanted locked up and out of this sector. Now that VS is gone, everybody is in a free fall and they don't know what to do. So any interloper they can grasp onto and latch onto. Do you see what I'm saying? And that's what's going on, Cloud, in my opinion.
You know what? You're absolutely right when it comes to that. It is funny. There is like a vacuum since she's left. Let's be fair on that.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be honest. I'm not sub to her at all. I don't really follow her like that.
Right. But you can see the difference, can't you?
Oh yeah, it's a huge difference.
Yes, it's a huge difference. Like
it's crazy how she's not even here now.
Yeah.
And everybody's making stuff off of her. I mean, they should. I tell you what, they should give to her commissary.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make sure she's taken care of. Half of their super chat or cash apps or whatever they get, or PayPal or whatever, half of that should go to VS.
Yeah, because they're still talking about her. Yeah, I ain't never seen nothing like it.
I tell you what, there's one person who's, I mean, every time she's on, it's about her.
Mm-hmm.
And we've dealt with her.
Yeah.
And she did moderate that thing very well. And I do think I think she's as a whole is a decent person. I do, but she's been going ham with about DS. It's an obsession.
It's an obsession. Yeah, I agree. I think they all are obsessed with her to some degree, and now that she's gone, they don't know what to do with themselves, so it's a free fall. And so that's why they chosen to embrace something despicable like Tommy Sotomayor.
Yeah, but he's no BS, I tell you what.
No, he's not.
Listen, you say what you want about her, she wouldn't do this.
No, she ain't. No, he is absolutely deplorable. Like, he has no demeaning qualities at all. But y'all want to embrace him, but you want to shun her, but embrace something like that? Wow.
You might as well have Sean Hannity. You might as well have David Duke here.
You know what I mean?
You might as well.
Okay. I mean, the head of the K. You might as well have the head of the KKK on her with his green wizard robe on, Cloud. Okay, you might as well have forget time. Just go straight to the KKK. Tell him to put his green wizard robe on and come on your show. That's what you might as well do.
You might as well have Bill O'Reilly on here.
Okay.
You might as well. I mean, I tell you what, you might as well dig up Don Imus, dust him off, put him on.
For real.
Hey,
real talk.
Rudy Giuliani. Let's give him a chance.
Yep.
While we're at it.
Yep.
Let's put 45 on here while you're at it too.
Yep.
I mean, jeez. But
yeah.
And you know what? Some of our stupid ass clowns. Excuse me. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to say that. Some of our so-called people will follow too.
Yeah.
That's the worst part.
Oh, they'll be co-signing them, Cloud. You're right about that. Okay. We'll love to see a David Duke or a Bill O'Reilly or some KKK member in a green wizard robe be following right behind them. You're right about that. Not only in this sector, honey, but across all of them.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, especially some of those derelict men over there in the quote-unquote woke sector. They will love to pop something like that. You know. That's right, Stacey girl. Let's just pop in Jim Crow. You're right about that. It's just crazy, but yeah.
I'm waiting for somebody to be named Jim Crow and just come over to the subject.
Okay.
I'm waiting for that. There's gonna be some guy with white face come on.
You know what I mean?
Jim Crow.
Okay.
I can see that.
Wow. I'm gonna have to retitle this video "The State of the Sector." You know, pre VS and post VS.
You know what? That would be a perfect live stream. That would be perfect.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm gonna have to name it. Pre VS and post VS, cause baby, they done lost their mind. It's in a free fall around here. Anytime you can suffer somebody like that thing over there, him, if you can suffer him, now it's something going on. It's just bad.
Might as well have Synthetic come here.
Yeah.
Might as well. Just bring her over.
Yeah.
Bring her right over.
Yeah.
She fit right in anyway.
Yeah. Who'd you say, Cloud?
Right in lockstep.
Who'd you say now?
No, I say they might as well have Synthetic come over too. Might as well come over to the sector too. Why not? I mean,
but you know what? Even synthetic don't embrace Tommy Sotomayor. No, he is the beast. He's the beast of a different type, Cloud. He is absolutely freaking deplorable.
But what would make it worse is she would go after the white guy.
No, that's true too.
She would go for Tommy. She would go for the white person.
That he a whole clown, man. He's deplorable. I can't.
Why go for the black guy? I'm going right to what she considers the top.
Right. I have heard about more than a couple of women since he's been over that have jumped on his platform, and then they try to say it's in the name of promotion. I promote my channel. Why would you want to promote your channel amongst some people that hate you? Tommy Sotomayor get his money. His whole platform is centered around bashing black women. That's how he make his money. What do you mean promotion? Promotion what? Black what he deems as black dysfunction? What type of promotion is that? So you want these people that's coming from his channel over here on your channel, and they don't think nothing of you?
Self-hate is a very
That's crazy to me. That don't make sense.
It's self-hate. It's any publicity is good publicity. That lets you know that they care absolutely nothing about themselves, their people, or just anything. All they care about is that almighty dollar. It's not even a dollar.
Ooh.
It's like we are so thirsty for any type of just acknowledgement.
Yes.
They'll go to any length to get
yes.
It's downright sad.
Yes. That's what it is. You know what? You just hit the thirsty for any type of acknowledgement. I couldn't have put it any better because you're absolutely right. That is absolutely what's going on here. Thirsty for any type of acknowledgement. You are absolutely right about that. That is exactly what's going on. Lord have mercy. Ooh, child. That's too much, Claude.
Would have said it stinks to high heaven.
Yeah, that's too much. That's too much. Him? No.
But I'm gonna have to get off of here.
Okay.
I have to tend to the queen.
Okay.
I apologize again. I'm not always, on here the way I would like to be, but
I know.
You've known the situation.
Oh, absolutely.
I thank everybody so much. I thank you so much, Auntie. I love you to death.
No, I know, Claude. And please tell the queen that we are continuing to pray for her and you and your whole family, as well as sending positive vibes and always positive energy you guys' way. Claude, we really appreciate you only when you can pop on here. I know you a busy man. You got to take care of your queen, your family, your own. Y'all still got to survive. So whenever you get a chance to pop on, I just want you to know I really appreciate you. I really do.
Bless you so much. I appreciate you. She's doing so much better. She's been tremendous.
Good.
I'm truly blessed, man. She's the best. I can't say enough. I'm a better person because of that woman. There's no question about it, man.
Wow. You're a beautiful soul, Claude. You're
truly fortunate, man. I get to wake up to the greatest woman on this planet every single day, man. I'm just grateful, man. And I make sure to tell her that too, man. She's the best.
Wow. That is all right.
And I know you're king, man. He's been.
The mister, he okay. He's still long as he grouching, we know we good, Claude. Long as he grouching, growl like a bear, we good. When you stop grouching and growling, it's a problem. But you know to deal with that. So yeah, but we'll
cousin Brandy and everybody, the rest of the family.
Okie dokie.
And, I appreciate you so much.
Okay, thank you, Claude. Thanks for calling. All right, take care. Bye-bye. That was awesome. I sure appreciate Claude calling in. Let me yeah, that was all right. Oh, Claude sure love his wife, man. It's in the Bible it says that he who finds a wife finds a good thing. And it's just refreshing to know that there are some men in our community, that really takes that verse to heart. I can't stand that music on. That's annoying. But yeah, man, Claude is right. I don't know what's going on around here. I'm like, oh goodness, what is going on? But like Claude said, I guess folks running around here thinking anything for attention, But all attention is not good attention. That's all I know. How have we been on here? All right. So nobody, I'm assuming none of you guys want to call. And so I guess we'll shut it down. We've been on 2 hours. And thanks again, Claude, for calling in. I really appreciate you, man. But I very rarely do this sort of thing. But I was like, hey, it's Sunday. I don't have anything else to do. Let me open the phone lines. But I guess since we're not talking about some bull crap, nobody wants to have the conversation. And that's cool. I absolutely understand. So, yeah. But I really would like to know what you guys think of Cloud said, I'm so thankful for you and the Porch Watchers, Auntie. I love y'all. So thank you, Cloud. You know, we love you too. You know, we love you too. Because you very rarely, I don't think you've ever called in before, Cloud. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. So anyway, guys, we'll leave the phone lines open for about 5 more minutes. I'll put the number in one more time. After that, I'll let y'all get off. It ain't much of us, but I appreciate y'all tuning in today. I realized that this wasn't a pressing subject or whatever, but it is Dr. King. They are celebrating his Dr. King's Martin Luther King Day tomorrow, and so I promised that I would do this stream, and that's what I did. So yeah. But that's cool though. But y'all, like I said, I appreciate you guys joining me today. It means a lot. I'm just kind of disappointed about how everybody, how a lot of folks anyway have chosen to embrace that thing over there. I enjoyed this live. It was needed reflecting back to one of our greatest advocates of our people. Thank you, MYW. I sure appreciate you for saying that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I really wanted to, I thought it was instead of, we always do the Dr. King speeches and stuff. And so I wanted to play something from, somebody other than Dr. King, even though we are, many of us will be celebrating Dr. King Day tomorrow. But, Dr. King was just one civil rights advocate that spoke out and up for our people, during the time when our elders were fighting for our civil and human rights. And so, yeah, I just kind of want to highlight somebody different. That's all, as a way of honoring him as well. So, but yeah. But like I said, I find it fascinating, how things have really not progressed. They've deteriorated. It's unfortunate. Klaus said, I normally never call in because I want to give the Porch Watchers the floor. I figured that no one stepped up to the plate, so why not? Yeah, Cloud, nobody else is gonna step up to the plate, buddy. Thank you. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. And so yeah. That's part of the reason why I don't never hardly do like the call-ins and or none of that, cause child, why bother? But thanks for calling in, Cloud, and putting in your input. It was so greatly appreciated. Like, I really appreciate that. I really do. So yeah. Anyway, I guess I'm gonna get off of here. I thank you guys so much for joining me on this Sunday. You didn't have to be here. You could have been anywhere else, but you chose to be over here with me. Let me cut this godforsaken music off. So I can concentrate. You chose to be here with me, and that means so much to me. I hope you guys enjoyed the show today. I really do. I hope you guys, whatever it is, a lot of communities in this country like have parades and stuff like that on Dr. King's Day. So for some people it's just another work day. A lot of our people don't even bother. But if you are choosing to participate in any of the Dr. King's events tomorrow, I hope that you will truly, take a moment to reflect on what it had to be like for him then, trying to lead the charge, lead such a tremendous charge, and so yeah, I hope you guys take a minute to reflect upon that. But I'm going to get off of here, and I hope you guys enjoy your day. And so yeah, that's pretty much all I got. Don't forget to smile. Don't forget to smile at somebody, and never ever forget to love your beautiful self. Happy Dr. Martin Luther King's Day. Happy day off tomorrow if you're taking your day off tomorrow. And I'm going to talk to you guys later. Bye-bye. Peace.